Hi there, this is Jan-Philipp Drude. I'm with the Department for Digital Methods and Architecture at the Leibniz University in Hanover. And I want to show today a short tutorial on Project DisCo, which is an immersive aggregation tool for discrete building blocks that I'm developing as part of my PhD research. I'm currently here at project-disco.com, where you can download Project DisCo for Mac and Windows, also download some scenarios and example files. I expect that everyone will be able to install it, since it's quite self-explanatory. I will now switch to the game and explain how to set up a game when you're first joining it. Here in the Start menu, you can host a game, you can join a game that's already hosted somewhere else, you can play a single player, and you can set up some settings. And those are important for everyone who's hosting a game and everyone who wants to do single player, since it builds the pipeline to Wasp and Grasshopper, where all these systems are created. And I can load a Wasp input file from here. And if you downloaded the scenarios, we can choose those. So I can flick here, go through my hard drive. I can go to the scenario 4 for now, and I can choose the scenario setup. I can then choose a save path location that's contained within the scenario 4 folder. And that's the folder where you will write all your save games to, and also where you can exchange with Wasp, since Wasp files that we save to that folder can be loaded in DisCo if they are done with the same system. So I set that. I could also set a player file if I have it, which gives constraints to the players in multiplayer version. I only want to play single player, and I don't want to have any constraints since I want to show all the tools. So I will leave that out, or could choose it and afterwards clear it again. Could also choose which color scheme I want this. I would stay with this candy mode. If you have a pair of anaglyph glasses, which are these blue and red 3D glasses, you could go to color to get some more immersion and see everything in 3D a little bit. I could also choose a multiplayer name here, which I will only play single player now, so I don't really need it. And then really important are these parts, the snap threshold and the angle tolerance. Those are different for every system, since it depends on the complexity, like the geometric complexity of a system, and also the size, so that the parts behave naturally in snapping together. And with all the scenarios that I provide you with in a text file in there, the thresholds are written, or roughly written. So for this should be between 0.5 and 0.6. And the angle tolerance here should be quite loose. The number of parts are the number of parts that float around here freely. If you only want to shoot parts and not choreograph, you could set it to 0. I will set a small number like 50 to show the choreographing mode. Could also change the shoot visibility, which is just when parts become visible to the camera after they have been shot. And then there's the fog density, which is like the fog here in the horizon, and I will set it to like 70% or something. Okay, after all this is set up, I can save and return. It will write a file where these options are saved. So next time you open the game, it will open with these options. But that's also that it is necessary that you install the application to a part of your hard drive where you actually have write access without administrator rights. So to your home folder or directly on the hard drive or somewhere there. Now I could host a game, just give it a name, click host, or I could join a game that someone else has hosted, which currently there aren't any open. If open games are open, then they'll appear here as a button and I can click on them. Or I could just choose a single player, which I will do now. This now opens a new game and I can choose the controller that I want to play. So I could use a VR controller, then you could use any VR device that's integrated with Steam VR. So most notably the Oculus and the HTC Vive. And I can also use the FPS controller, which I will do now to play at the desktop. I could also use some controller settings to constrain them a little bit, which I don't really want to do. I want to spawn the normal FPS controller. Right, it spawns like this. I can walk around with W, A, S, and D. I can look around with my mouse. I can scroll up and down to have this part get away from me or come towards me. I can use the arrow keys on the keyboard to switch or to navigate the menu here on the right hand side. And with return, I can apply changes in the menu. So first of all, I need a starting point for an aggregation. And this blue button or the blue block that I have here comes because I'm in place mode, which is highlighted here. So just by clicking the mouse, left click the mouse, it will place a block here in space, which I can use as a starting point for an aggregation. I could also right click to use to flick through all my parts. You see the shadow changing there especially, and spawn another part here. But it makes sense to just have one part or one aggregation from Wasp as a starting point so that they aren't disconnected. So this I might want to delete again. So just click edit to delete it. And now I could, for example, use the shoot mode to assemble stuff here and have this grow three-dimensionally. But since this is quite random, I might want to use a starting aggregation that I created in Wasp. So we'll go down here to save load, click new game, yes, really new, starts afresh. Now I can go to load, and load will now give me all files which are contained in the safe path that I provided. And in here I have a few DisCo saves already, these which are named with the date they were created and time they were created. And there's also something called floorplan.json, which is a file that I created in Wasp as a starting aggregation. So I can click that, say, yes, really load. So return again. And now this floor plan is loaded here. Now I could use that as a starting point for my aggregation and further aggregate on that. So let's have a look on what we can do here. First of all, for an aggregation that's as large as this, I might want to fly. So I can navigate around that. I can fly up by hitting space. I can fly down by hitting control and then WASD again. I can also turn off fly by clicking it again. Then space becomes jumping, control becomes crouching. But now I really want to use it. And now let's go first through these placement type tools, since they are the most important. First of all, the place, we already had that. We already had the shoot also, but we could use the choreography mode. And the choreography mode especially makes sense in VR, since it's designed to work with a VR controller that you can really control how you move it in space. But I can also use it here. I scrolled my target a little bit away from me with a mouse, and now I can move these around simply by moving my view, changing my viewpoint basically. And when this flock of parts comes near something that's already aggregated in blue here, it starts further aggregating on that. Again, this really only makes sense to use in VR, where it's easier to control it. Maybe turn fly mode off. But we see how parts get stuck here when they get close. For this, we also have these number of parts here where I can change how many parts are affected by this choreography mode, for example. I might want to have less or more. Next would be the shoot. We already had that. Just aggregate by shooting parts, add an aggregation. And afterwards, there would be grow. And grow makes a lot of sense to do small starting aggregations that you load back in Wasp, or to really go in there and do the minute stuff. So I can click on a part where I want to aggregate on. It will show me the open connections here. And I can choose one. It's displayed with this plane, like a Grasshopper plane. And I can click the one that I like, and it'll spawn a part that fits there. And I can now, with left and right on my keyboard, change what part I want to have there. In this case, only one other part is allowed, so nothing will change by clicking left and right. When I have the correct part selected, I can hit return, and it will ask me to choose a connection. And here, we see a little bit of a change that it rotates, but really it's self-similar. So we don't really see a difference. Again, with another system, we would see it transforming to the next connection that works. And it'll also check for collisions. So you wouldn't be allowed to aggregate a colliding part. And finally, hit enter or return one more time to make the part assemble. And then you could start the process again, add this, and so on. As said, this makes sense for really purposefully aggregating part by part. The next would be the pick and choose. Or maybe one more thing here. You could be in the grow and be on some other menu. And now you could start it. But to change options here, like change the part and change the connection, you need to go back to the placement type here. And as soon as you then step away from it, so click up or down, it will abort the process. So that's also in a way, it's also a way of aborting the whole thing. Right. Next would be the pick and choose. Pick and choose is for taking a part out of the air here, one of those choreographing parts. And I can scroll it towards me. I can bring it somewhere in proximity, and it'll snap to the closest connection that it finds. Let's see. Maybe this will connect somewhere here. So here, that connected. That also works. And those are basically the tools that I have to my disposal for aggregating parts. And then, of course, I can delete them. So I can delete part by part, like so. Just click on them. I can also delete recursively. This, you see a few parts here are highlighted, and then a part is deleted and all its children are deleted likewise. So this will delete all these at once, and so on. Makes a lot of sense to keep the structure of an aggregation intact so that everything is still connected if you look at a connection graph of the whole thing. I can also just do it with a sphere. I can simply click. As soon as I click, everything that's contained within the sphere will be deleted. That makes a lot of sense for sculpting. It's a ton of fun in VR to just load a large block of a large aggregation of blocks, random aggregation of blocks in, and just sculpt it the way you want to do. And finally, there's the enable, disable. Here I can disable parts for aggregation. So when I aggregate on this, try to shoot at it, nothing will aggregate on it. Same with the choreography. I can still grow from them though, because that's very purposeful. So this I can still do, and the part that's grown will be active. And I can re-enable stuff by, again, going to enable, disable, and right-clicking to change the option here, and then clicking everything again to enable it again. There's sometimes that right-clicking works. Here I can simply by clicking again let it loose again. Is there anywhere else where right-clicking works? In Choreo, no, I don't think there's a right-click. There's a click here which will let everything drift apart. What else do we have? No, I think those are the relevant info for the placement type. There's also the filters, and those again change the behavior of the placement types. For example, the part filters. These act like flags. So these two parts are currently active since they are light blue like everything else is, or like all the other aggregated parts are. And I can click them and they will be disabled. So now when I shoot, I disabled this tetrahedral part. Now when I shoot, only the octahedral parts will come out here. A little fast to see maybe. Let me scroll down, that'll make it slower, and you'll see these are now only the octahedral parts. The others are deactivated. Could also turn it around. Now it's other way around. Now only the tetrahedral parts are spawned. And same in the choreographing mode. Only the tetrahedral parts now get active in the choreography. Again, with Grow, that's exempt from that. Also, Pick and Choose is exempt from that, since there you pick something out of the air. So again, that's something purposeful. But there's also the rule filters. And rule filters could be the rule grammar from Wasp, or it could be rule groups that you create in Wasp. And those again work like flags. So I could, for example, now say, okay, here we have one side octa connects to one side tetra. So it's basically that some of the sides connect. This isn't actually a great system to explain this since it's so simple. But I could deactivate all of these and now no aggregation would happen anymore. So if I go to shoot this, these won't aggregate anywhere. Same with the choreography. Same with Grow even. I can, yeah. There's parts here, I can go through them, but there isn't anything spawning. Like it goes there, but I need to abort it. And also with a Pick and Choose, I can pick up a part, but it will not connect since there's nothing, no rule allowed where it could connect. So here, you could have some guided growth with that by providing different sets of rules. This is basically all the placement stuff. Of course, I then can save the whole thing. We saw how we can load the whole thing. We saw that we can have a new game. We also have fields. That's something where we can draw fields for Wasp. So I can go to draw field and I can go through here and draw some field information. And it will create a field in the whole box here with a resolution that I set in Wasp. Currently, it's probably 1 meter resolution, so rather coarse. But I can draw all this here. Can also scale it up by, again, mouse scrolling and make it larger. I can also delete from that, again, with this delete field component here. Again, needs to click and then walk through it to delete it. And when I'm happy with my field, I can export it to Wasp by going to Save Load and say Export Field. This will make all these field points appear which are in proximity there. Now, again, this is a 1 by 1 by 1 meter grid, so it's rather coarse, but I can now set how much threshold I want to have, how much influence I want this drawn field to have by clicking left and right. So if I click left, these will become red and it'll get closer to the actual aggregation. Now we see only a few points here which are rather close, and that's maybe more what I want. And then I'll have a field in Wasp where the green points here are set to 1, and yeah, the red points basically are set close to 0, and everything here where we don't have any points, it's definitely going to be 0. So we'll have a nice field there, and I can click again. It will create a fields folder in the save folder, and you can load that into Wasp. Now there's a few more things left, not a lot though. We're almost there. I can simulate everything, and that I probably show with a new game. So click new. This is something I should probably implement. This is currently, they are not being deleted when I create a new game. Right. And I can now create a new aggregation by placing a part and shooting at it. Let's do it for a few here. Pretty fast shooting here, so pretty fast growing. And I can click simulate, and it'll simply fall to the ground. Can now tell it to stop, and I could now reset it. Or I could decide to not reset it and just focus somewhere else, and then it will be applied and I can further aggregate on this. In the multiplayer, this means that only when you unfocus and you apply it, it will distribute it to the other players. It's not happening in real time over the network. It's only that the result will be distributed through the network. I could also click the export AR, then it will step by step disassemble it, and every time export a file and check how it's placed on the ground. So you'll soon see that it will change its position on the ground here. And like that, you can aggregate or simulate a build-up sequence, basically. And afterwards, it loads again. Now, what else do we have? We have a no clip where we can walk through all this. Else you would collide with it. We can control Z. Currently it doesn't work because I just loaded everything in. So again, let's go new. Let's create something new. Let's shoot at it a little bit. Like so. And maybe now try Control Z, which of course deletes stuff that was just aggregated all the other way around. So if I delete something, we'll also add it again. And finally, I can change my size, which might make sense to change perspective. So I can grow larger or smaller. And whenever I want to go back to 100%, I just need to click return when I'm on it. And that's basically everything that we have in Project DisCo. So I went through the complete tool set, probably a bit much for some, but skip the parts that you don't plan to use and enjoy and build with it. I'm happy when it's used. Thank you.